Hello, my creative Christmas elves. My name is Heather, and welcome once again to the Myth Rose channel. In this video, you'll see me upcycle some old saris into my 2019 Christmas dress. Oh, mama. Rippling fabric. My lining fabric, thrifted. Old sari, gifted. Second old sari, thrifted. And my sketch. Copic markers. First pattern piece, circle skirt, super easy. Use a ribbon to make a quarter of a circle, fold it over, make half a circle. You don't need to make a whole half circle, but I wanted to for faster cutting. Second step, wrap up your mannequin so it looks super cool, but then don't actually make anything that looks anything like that. Get her naked. Ooh, more flowy fabrics, 3-layered skirt. Okay, this is my first attempt at draping. Yes, spoiler alert, this didn't work. Draping is the process of making a pattern, one process. What you do is you literally drape the fabric onto the dress form, you pin it down, and then you trace out where you want your pattern piece to be. This makes making things like darts a lot easier, in my opinion. Then you cut it out, you have a pattern piece. So this is me doing the back, and of course the back is a lot easier than the front. It's got less lumps to deal with. This worked out the first time. Back of a bodice is super duper easy. Front of the bodice, often has more variations and more variables. So then you trace out your pattern pieces and add a seam allowance. Don't add a seam allowance that's as big as mine. I always add giant seam allowances thinking, if it's too small, I have the seam allowance to work with. But it just messes things up in the long run. Don't do it. Make your seam allowances a normal amount. Okay, so now we're sewing it together. I realized after filming all the sewing I did for this project, that watching someone sew is super boring and it always looks the same. It's just me sitting there with red fabric, pushing it through this machine. So this is the only time you're gonna see me sew. All right, trying it on, realizing that didn't quite work. What do I need to do to figure this out? Okay, well, let's just cut out the pattern pieces I made from that and hope for the best. That will probably work. Spoiler alert, it did not. Indecision. Ah, there I am, trimming my giant seam allowances. Indecision. Here's me trying to fix the front of the bodice that I already have. I tried to make it into two pieces to get a princess seam. It did not work. Here I am doing it again with some scrap fabric I found because I didn't want to use the red stuff anymore. So I decided to drape it onto myself first and then use the dress form as a secondary because although I adjusted the dress form to my measurements, her boobs are not in the right place. They are way too perky, or way perkier than me, so that was difficult to work with. And I decided to make two seams instead of a dart, because it's prettier anyways. Hopefully this works. Don't want to do it again. Trace, trace, trace. Alright, so here I'm finally pinning the bodice together that will hopefully work. And there was a lot of adjustments that needed to be made. Partly because it just didn't work out the fit right away, but partly because I was so indecisive about how I wanted the shoulder seams to work and how I wanted the bodice to attach in the front, like in the middle. So I got all this extra stuff there that I eventually get rid of. is adjustment after adjustment after adjustment. I'm tired. And the fitting was really difficult to do on myself because I didn't sew the shoulder seams forever, and then actually I decided to put bows on the shoulders, so I was constantly trying to fit it without having the shoulders stay in the right place. So here I'm cutting out the shell for the bodice, and I had to put the interfacing on first because this fabric was so loosely woven that it would have just shattered if I hadn't done that when I cut it. So now I've finally got the bodice coming together and it's starting to look like something, which is really exciting. Can't you see the excitement on my face? Alright, I'm tired of the dress, so I'm moving on to the blouse because that should be super easy, and it was. I just used a block that my sister had given me earlier and cut off the top and made an off-the-shoulder blouse. It was not fitted at all, so there was very little thinking involved, and I love projects with very little thinking. The green fabric that I used, also thrifted. Also, I'm thinking from an Indian outfit. Okay, so this is me attempting to put the circle skirt layers together and attach them to the bodice and then put the zipper in, and this was a not so short and not so bearable nightmare that went on for a while. Although it wasn't the worst part of the project. Kids, plan your projects. They will go much better. This was kind of a, like, I don't know, a terrible choose your own adventure, like plan as you go along kind of thing that just, this dress was way too complicated for that. I just didn't know what decisions I would need to make, so I don't know how I could have planned it better. It's just this was my first time making a dress of this style in this way. I only recently started making my own patterns or making things without patterns, so this is what happens when you learn something new. You put something together and then you spend ages ripping it apart. Oh god, how long did it take me to sew those seams? Like 10 minutes, and then it took me 2 hours to rip things apart. Okay, now we're done. I made a belt. That was really easy and boring to watch, so I didn't include it. Here's the most terrible part of this project. I was not precise when I cut out my circle skirts, even though I made a pattern for them so that I could be precise. And then I thought, oh, I'll make the top layer a little shorter and the middle layer a little longer, and then it will look really layered. And I can just do that when I hem it, and I don't have to measure it when I cut it, and oh, dear Lord, how wrong I was. Hemming a circle skirt, even if it was cut out precisely, is a nightmare because it's just a constant curve. There's no straight lines. If you've ever hemmed something, you know that a straight line is easy to hem and a curve is a bitch. Well, this is 100% curve. So I got to this spot in my editing and I thought, oh, I could cut all this out. I suffered so much to make this though, and I kind of wanted you guys to suffer along with me a little bit. So I left it in, but I'll also not make you suffer so much and tell you a little story while you watch. So we used to go have my mom's family Christmas on Christmas Day every year, but when we were around, I think I was around 10 or 12-ish, they decided to do it every other year. So every other year we have Christmas with my mom's family on Christmas Day, and all the other years we do it before Christmas. So the first time we were left on our own for Christmas Day in my whole life at that point, we thought we'll go to the movies and then we'll go out and get something to eat, like Chinese food or something. Because I guess we'd seen people in movies do that, so we just assumed we'd be able to. So we go to the movie, And it was great, and we come out and we're driving around, we're hungry, mostly what we've eaten all day is just popcorn, I guess. And we're driving around and nothing, absolutely nothing is open. We're looking everywhere, and this was before like smartphones and Google and whatnot, so we couldn't just like search it. We were just driving around the whole city to the point where my dad yelled, "Isn't there a fucking Jewish pizzeria in this town somewhere?" Evidently there wasn't. So we ended up just going home. We couldn't find anything. Nothing was open. So we get home and we have no groceries for some reason. All we had was bread and cheese. So we made grilled cheese sandwiches. And for the whole year, anytime my brother or sister or I got the chance, we would tell people about how we were fed grilled cheese sandwiches on Christmas Day by my terrible parents, partly as a joke, partly complaining. So then 2 years later, we started a tradition where we go to the movies and we come back home and make grilled cheese sandwiches, but we plan it and we make gourmet grilled cheese sandwiches. And now my sister is a chef, and so she mostly makes like these amazing grilled cheese sandwiches. And we put all kinds of stuff in them and they're delicious. Okay, so now we're done with the hem. Oh, no we're not. Now we're trying to even it out a different way, which didn't work because the zipper was already in there messing things up. Couldn't actually fold it, but I cut it anyways. Oh god, this is painful to watch. I got sick of that, so I decided to do the shoulders. And what I decided to do was put some grommets in and put bows on my shoulders. And that's what I'm doing here. I have this little machine that helps you crimp the grommets in, but then I also had to hammer them afterwards because the fabric wasn't fat enough. Like this grommet thing doesn't squish it totally flat. If you have a lot of fabric in there, it works, but otherwise you have to hammer it down. All right, and then I decided that for the lace-up ribbon in the front, I didn't want to put the big grommets in because I thought it would spoil the bodice. So I decided to use hook and eyes, but I would just use the eye part of the hook and eyes. So I put like all these little loops in there on the inside, and I thought it would kind of have an illusion lace-up thing. And there's my husband getting my shot. And after I finished that, I did all the finishing touches. For some reason with my projects, maybe it's all projects, maybe it's just me, I don't know, I always have a bunch of hand sewing to do at the end of a project because I always put it off. I do not enjoy hand sewing. So the end of the project is always me going, ugh, okay, I guess I have to do that now. It's the only thing left to do. Except this time, the hem was the only thing left to do because it was just so painful. All right, so here I am lacing up the ribbon, and other than the hem, I am all finished. Just kidding. I decided I didn't like how the hook and eye thing went, so I put grommets in the front of the bodice. And because this fabric is so loosely woven, I decided to put glue on my grommets to kind of hold it together. And it's done. So when I finally hemmed the dress, I was really angry and it was all wrinkly and terrible, so I decided to put green ribbon to cover it up, and it ended up somewhat even. It's not perfect. I'm never gonna fix it. There you go.
And that's the story of how I took 2 old saris and made 1 new Christmas dress. Have you done any upcycling this Christmas? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and sew you later.
There's nothing better than a blossoming circle skirt in full twirl.